Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. Today we have Lindsay Pinchuk on here, and it's going to be really interesting because she has grown her business or an ex-business, former business. Now I'm using relationship terms. First business. There we go. She had just grown her first business to 7 figures. She's now in the marketing and consulting space and helping other women do the same things. So we're going to have a good episode for you today. So this podcast episode is brought to you by Corporate to Contract, the place to go if you have corporate or office experience and want to take the skills you have and become your own boss and online contractor. You can go to corporate2contract.com. That info is also in the show notes. Now, if you love the podcast, which I'm sure you do, make sure you sign up for our newsletter, The Tipping Jar of Wisdom. As a subscriber, you get exclusive advice every Thursday straight to your inbox from guests like Lindsay Pinchuk. And you can connect with me on Instagram at virtually Kiri or LinkedIn, Kiri Mohan. I'm the only one there on LinkedIn, so come find me. All right, Lindsay, hello, welcome. Lindsay is an award-winning entrepreneur, consultant, community builder, connector, storyteller, expert marketer, social media maven, spokesperson, on-air expert, small business champion, and mom. With a $500 investment and a baby on the way, she left a high-powered job as a magazine publishing executive and founded her first company, which she grew to reach 3 million users per month. 3 million users per month. Good. Wow. Yeah. I don't know why I tripped over that. I was like, what? Is that real? Per month, and generate 7 figures in revenue year over year. She turned a profit in year 1 and less than a decade later led her company through its acquisition to a large agency holding company. Today, Lindsay works with businesses, both large and small, to build and monetize their communities through content, social media, email, events, partnerships, and publicity strategies. You can also find her behind the mic of her twice-weekly podcast for female founders, Dear Found Her. That's spelled FOUNDHER, Found Her. Lindsay lives on Chicago's North Shore with her husband, 2 daughters, and mini Bernadoodle, Ollie. Lindsay, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You know, Chicago, I really like Chicago. And for me to say that, I'm not much of a city person. Don't really like cities, but Chicago is my second favorite city after London. So I'm kind of jealous to live there. Yeah. But I mean, when I went to Chicago, I don't know what I was expecting, just another city, but the lakes and the greenery and how much Chicago has incorporated greenery into its city was just, you could have the best of everything there. You could have the city, you could have the beaches, you could have the parks to walk in. It was really quite
Chicago's
surprising.
Amazing, and it's amazing in the summer.
See, I didn't go. I went like December.
Okay. Well, that's fun too, though, for the holidays.
I loved it in December. So that says something, right? I think if you love it during December, yes. You know, I don't know if it was holidays yet. It was like really beginning of December. But anyway, thank you for being on. And let's talk a little bit about your business right now, your marketing and consulting business, your podcast, and what you're doing at this moment.
So I know we're going to get into this, but I sold a company and I worked there for 2 years. And when it was time for me to exit that company, I knew that I wanted to help other people to find the success that I had found. And actually, part of why I left was because I was being approached by people asking me, can you take on this project? Can you help me with this? With my content? Can you help me with my social media? Can you help me with brand ambassadors or influencers? And they were all projects that were very exciting to me. And they were all willing to pay me more than my employer, who is the company who bought me. And it just, you know, I started my first company to help other people. It was to help moms. And I felt that that had kind of run its course and I was not in a place of helping anymore. And I really wanted to get back to that, being there, helping, supporting, lifting others up. And so when I left in September of 2021, I simply said, I'm taking clients, and people said, in what? And, you know, at the time, I really didn't know. There was a lot that I am capable of doing and really wanted to get my hands in on. And so I started taking clients within the first 3 weeks of me saying it and sending emails. I had 2 clients. One was a personal brand. One was a startup. And I have not slowed down since. I have since refined my offering for sure. Lindsay Pinchuk Marketing and Consulting really is based upon how I built and grew my first company organically with no marketing budget. And that is through a method I call SWEEP. And SWEEP stands for social media, website, events, emails, publicity, and partnerships. And it's a very community-centric, cost-effective approach to marketing and really igniting your brand without spending a dime. And so that is what I work with my many coaching and consulting clients on, as well as what I talk about in the many workshops and keynote speeches that I give.
So I noticed on your website, you have the growth done for you and the growth done with you. Does that mean you will take on clients where you do everything for them? You just go in and do your sweep method. And then you have clients that are more on like a consulting, almost like an audit. And you go in and you say, this is what you need to do. And then you meet with them to make sure they're doing it.
So when I do it for you, it's a little bit of a hybrid of consulting and applying. The people who hire me to consult tend to be bigger brands, and I go in and I build them a marketing strategy. Usually it starts with content, and then it drills down to social media, and I work with their team to implement. Sometimes I do a little bit more than others. It depends on the scope of work. Those are much bigger contracts than, say, a coaching client. When I coach a client, we narrow down on kind of 3 areas where they want to grow. I do a 3-month minimum, and each month we spend working together and I guide them along. So we meet a few times a month, and in between I give them homework, I guide them along, I look at their homework, and on the other end, they have whatever it is we're building together. It might be a social media plan, it might be a brand ambassador plan. It all kind of depends. And I really do customize it per client. I don't have like a cookie cutter offering. I have things that I do for clients, but I really do drill down to meet the needs of the client. And there's a lot that I can offer based on what I did with Bump Club.
Are you willing to share the pricing of your marketing consulting? Because I feel like it would really range.
So my consulting, when I do it for you, it starts. Actually, scratch that. I don't want to share my consulting because they're big brands. And
okay,
can you cut that out?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll make a note right now.
This is what I can say to answer the question, though. I developed the coaching product because there were a lot of people who couldn't afford my consulting, and there were individuals who wanted to work with me, and I did not want to turn them away because I knew that we could have something special together and that I could help them in a big way. So I developed the coaching program to work with smaller founders or people who are just getting off the ground who maybe didn't have something established yet. And that's why the bigger brands really hire me for the consulting and smaller individuals hire me for the coaching.
I was actually just looking, I almost like wish I'd found you earlier, but I was just looking a few months ago for this because as I'm like growing my business outside of one-on-one coaching, and I'm doing like group coaching now, and I'm creating a course, I wanted to like tweak my marketing and figure out how exactly am I going to do what I want to do. And that sounds like it would have been a perfect solution. And I've already hired someone. So
well, and here, if you ever need something in the future, I mean, it's definitely, like I said, this was dictated by my community. So.
And it's interesting for our listeners, when you're looking for something like this, saying like a marketing consultant or something similar when you're using search terms really helps. Because I was looking for I kept using terms marketing coach, I think. And I wasn't coming up with anything, but that's what I wanted. I wanted someone to sit down, do like an audit, give me a plan, strategize, and move forward from there, which is what you're doing.
That's what I do.
Yes. So consulting was, and I actually ended up going on Reddit being like, this is what I'm looking for. And everyone was like, you want a marketing consultant? And I was like, oh, okay. So you said you work with clients a minimum of 3 months, which I think makes sense because from there, you can really build a foundation and really get to see the growth and see what's happening. And you had some really cool stats. Can you share with us maybe some success stories that you've seen without even saying names?
Yeah, no, of course. So, I mean, with my coaching clients, actually, I'll share from my consulting clients. So I have a lot of clients who come to me who, when they get to me, I look at their social media and I'm like, this is just, it's all wrong. Like, you're only talking about yourself. I mean, I have 9-figure brands who have hired me and I'm like, you are only talking about yourself. And that's why you're not engaging. That's why you're not growing. And the minute we start putting content in that actually connects with the community they're looking to reach, I start seeing triple-digit increases on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on Facebook in their reach and engagement metrics. I mean, it's really crazy. I had one client last year who really kind of didn't post that much. And within 2 weeks of implementing my strategy, or me implementing her strategy that I presented to her, I remember opening her insights and it was like 1,000% increase in engagement, 1,000% increase in reach. She just hadn't been posting consistently, and she wasn't posting the right content. So, it really has been awesome to watch these successes kind of roll in. I have another client who I created a big brand ambassador program for them. And then we created a very large giveaway platform so that they could use a giveaway and partnership giveaways to really propel their growth on social media. And within 2 weeks of me exiting, my project was over, but they were implementing the strategies that we had put into place. She reached out to me and she was like, "Oh my God, it's been 5 days since we put this up. We're up 1,400 email subscribers. We have 1,000 new followers on Instagram." And she said, it really is a nice, well-rounded package that you provided us, and we're seeing the growth across the board. So you can't beat that. You can, when you're as a coach or a consultant, you can't beat hearing those kind of successes.
That's great. That's great. I know I struggle with the newsletter thing, but that's kind of partly because I don't promote it as much as I should. And then I sit there complaining I don't have enough subscribers. I'm like, no one knows it exists.
Well, you just said it. Like, that's the big thing with any part of your business that isn't going as planned or isn't as successful as you want it to be. My guarantee to you is that people don't know about it.
Yeah. Yep.
And you have to be talking about it. And if you're not talking about it, then it's almost pointless having it.
Right. So let's go back and talk about, you've kind of mentioned and alluded to your first company, which was called Bump Club and Beyond. And you were in Good Housekeeping before working, and then you found out you were pregnant. And share with us that story so I don't spoil it.
Yeah, no, of course. So I worked in publishing for about a decade. I worked for some of the biggest brands in the world: Good Housekeeping, Redbook, MTV, Sports Illustrated. And I loved my job. I worked in ad sales, and I created integrated marketing programs for, Fortune 100 brands: Target, Quaker, PepsiCo, Best Buy. I mean, I covered a lot of territory as a very young executive, and it was a blast. And I loved creating these programs that existed inside these magazines, but also existed outside of the magazines, which you have to remember at this time, there was no social media. So it wasn't like there was an online platform for me to create programs surrounding. It was really, this integrated approach that didn't include digital because there was no digital. So that's what I did for a living. And I started hosting events when I was pregnant because I didn't have any friends who were pregnant in Chicago. Lo and behold, we all have kids who are going into 7th grade. I was just first, and all of my friends really got pregnant kind of within the year after me, most of them. And so I started hosting events to meet other pregnant women. And people who know me know I'm not like a half-asser, but I didn't have a plan. This wasn't like something that I was saying to myself, oh, I'm going to create this big company and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I always say I was an accidental entrepreneur. Clearly, there was a need for this. People in Chicago wanted it. Women who were pregnant wanted it. Our first event had 40-something people just by word of mouth. Our second event had close to 75. I was partnering with prenatal workouts, maternity stores. Partnerships were a very big part of my business. And I worked at Good Housekeeping and I started Bump Club in the same time span. So I was doing a lot. Granted, I didn't have a child yet, but I was pregnant, so I was pretty tired. But it was so much fun. And as I built Bump Club, I built it for me. I was connecting with so many amazing women. I started having dinners where I would bring in speakers on all these topics like breastfeeding and sleep. And after I had my daughter, I took maternity leave. And, maternity leave in the States is like 3 months. And so it's like nothing. But I took my maternity leave. I had a really good baby. I always say that if I started Bump Club when my second daughter was born, there would have been no Bump Club because she was like never slept. But Jordan, my first, started sleeping through the night at 8 weeks, and that I was very lucky. And so I would literally do work like a lot on maternity leave because she was napping, she was sleeping. And I don't necessarily quote recommend that. That's not what I'm pushing to women who are listening. But for me, it worked. I'm not someone who likes to sit still. I would sit on the couch, she would nap, I would check my email. And I really started to see Bump Club start to grow. And I decided I was going to go back to work. I had a really nice paycheck. I had a great expense account. and I loved my job. And when I went back to work, I had gotten a new boss about 5 weeks before I had Jordan, and she was single, she was divorced, she did not have kids, and she was past like childbearing age. So I mean, she was not going to biologically carry a child. And when I got back after maternity leave, the week before, she called me, which now I know was actually illegal of her to do, because you're not supposed to call someone when they're on maternity leave and talk about this kind of stuff. So she called me and she said, you know, I said to her, I have a question. I said, and she said, no, you cannot have a day from home. And I said, well, why not? Every woman on the floor in my office who's a mom has a day from home. And she said, you're my top seller. There's just no way I'm letting you have a day from home. And she said, and by the way, I know about your side hustle. And I just want you to know, if I find out that you're working on it at any point when you come back, there's going to be consequences. And it was in that moment that I said to my husband, I will go back, but the minute that I feel the pressure and the minute that I feel the stress and that I can't do both of these things, I'm going to leave. And I am okay with that. And to me, what the worst that happens is that this business doesn't take off and I have to go get another job. But if I cannot do both of these things and be a mother, something's got to give, and it's going to be Good Housekeeping, because I don't think that I have the support that I need there.
Mm.
And so I lasted about 2 or 3 weeks. I left. At the time, my publisher, said that she was very upset. She didn't want me to leave. I told her about what happened with this conversation. I told HR. I did find out that this woman was let go not long after. I mean, I don't think she even lasted a year at Good Housekeeping. Years later, I found out that my publisher was really the one who had the problem with me having the side hustle. And that the associate publisher was potentially like a messenger. And, the thing that really bothered me about the whole thing is, one, they both kind of were the ones who were not so supportive. But two, they were both women, and they were working for a publication in a publication house that created magazines to support women all over the globe. And that was what I was doing. And so instead of being, excuse me, but such assholes, they should have said, how can we support you in this? Because every single man at that company had a side hustle at the time. The VP was writing books and sharing them and using resources from the company and his stature at the company to promote the books. So like the fact that I had this little side hustle at the time that was really just to like meet up with other expectant moms because I didn't have support, think about that. Like really think about what I just shared with you. And I do very much think that if we were in today's generation, that wouldn't happen. I don't think today's generation of women who are executives would have treated me that way, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the most that might happen is if you signed something in the beginning saying you wouldn't moonlight or have a second business or side hustle or something like that, then they could, if they found wind of it, could be like, are you doing this during work hours? And they would have to prove that you're doing it during work hours. And but I think the sensitivity or the way that it's approached would be very different. It's a much different culture now. That's only how many years later? 13
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the woman who was like my publisher is, I don't really know how old she is, but I mean, she's probably close to retiring. And then the other woman was probably 10 to 15, maybe 12 to 15 years older than me. I'm 44. So she's probably in her mid 50s by now.
Yeah. So it's a different generation for sure. But is it the industry too? But it doesn't sound like it because the men were doing their own thing. But I mean, my impressions of the publishing industry are not very broad. It's like what's it called?
Devil Wears
Prada. Thank you. I was going to say
so,
right.
I mean, that's really not how it's funny because people did equate like where I worked and the leadership to where I worked to that. I never felt that. In fact, I loved my publisher. I loved working for her. A lot of people didn't. And, and I loved the experience that I got there. And I loved everything about my career at Good Housekeeping and at Redbook for that matter. But I do think that I do think publishing gets that rap, to be honest. And I think that, from what, if you think about it now, there are like no magazines, right? Like it's just a different world now. Like there are no magazines. Like when I worked in publishing, every magazine had 2 to 3 representatives in Chicago alone, and now in Chicago, there's like one representative for like 15 magazines. Not really. That's pretty broad, but like one representative for 5 magazines selling ad space, because it's just a different world now than it was when I was there. I was kind of there during the heyday. It was before, digitization took over. So I just, there were other stories that came out very similar to mine in the years that followed my departure. And I always found it ironic that here I was working for this company that was supposed to be lifting women up and supporting women, and they did through their content, but behind the scenes, they didn't really so much with their employees. And I do think that in today's day and age, that doesn't happen as much. It happens, but I think that we have kind of made a turn in many industries. I don't know what it's like at the publishing house now. I don't work there anymore. I don't even have friends who work there anymore. But I just think that how it was handled at the time was looking back, was not kosher.
I agree. And like you said, it's that little jab of them running a business that's supporting other women through their magazines, and yet they can't do that with their own employees.
But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. And that is something that I firmly, firmly believe in. And had I not had that negative experience that got me to say, you know what, I'm going to try this on my own, there might not be a bump club. There might not have ever been a bump club. And that's a huge part of my career. Yeah.
So walk us through that. Walk us through Bump Club and beyond, and how you grew that to 7 figures. And then through the acquisition, was it?
Yeah. So Bump Club started as just some events in Chicago. At first they were free, then they were ticketed, and then we started getting sponsors. And by the end of, I would say, the first year, like after my daughter was born, we were hosting a ton of events, probably 3 or 4 a month. And we had some pretty big brands who were paying us. And keep in mind, that's what I did at Hearst. So I understood how that worked. And the way that I set up my whole model was very much like a media model. Like my subscribers were the people who came to my events in the community, and my ad dollars were the sponsors and the sponsors that paid for my events. Over time, the events turned into not just events, but online content and a lot of support in that regard as well. Keep in mind, when I started, there was no social media. And within the first few years, I had to learn Facebook, and then I learned Instagram and Twitter. And, I really was self-taught by taking action for myself within my business. I built this business very much through partnerships. First it was free partnerships like trade. I had speakers come in and they would share about Bump Club and I would share about them. I would share about the stores where we were hosting events. They would share about me. I would have giveaways from stroller companies and car seat companies. They would share about me. And then within probably the first 3-4 months, I had my first big brand say, what can we do besides just giving you a car seat to give away? And I started building activations for them. So eventually my company became a B2B, B2C, because brands would come to me and ask me to build activations, but then they wanted me to build them for the Bump Club community. Yes, they would share them too, but I had this community of, at first, thousands and then millions of people who were following Bump Club through our email, our social media channels. We were running paid ads at the end, which is really how we got to that 3 million a month mark. We were doing partnerships with people like Huggies and Target, and we had an ad budget. And so we were able to put advertising dollars against what we were doing. But, I had Target, Nordstrom, The Honest Company, 7th Generation, Huggies, like very big brands approach us to build these activations and bring along our customers to engage with them and to engage with their brand. And that is how I built my company.
Wait, hold on. I usually don't interrupt, but for our listeners who don't understand what an activation is, can you please go into that a little bit?
So an activation could be anything from me. For example, Target wanted us to come in and to build community surrounding the registry, process in the baby department. So we did a series of 20 events in 20 stores around the country where we set up a whole, seated area. We had brands buy in. So brands sponsored it and they set up little like booths so that customers could engage with the various brands. We would have a speaker come and talk about the registry process or car seat safety or baby wearing. And then everyone would go home with like a little gift bag. And we, in the process, would be collecting their emails. The brands would collect their emails for giveaways on site. So there was just a lot of information exchange going on. And the activation was, really and truly so that people could understand how to register for their baby products. That was like a target activation. But we did the same thing with Nordstrom. We did the same thing with The Honest Company. The Honest Company hired us to build mom night out events around the country so that they could talk about their products to moms and influencer moms in one place at one time. And I think we did 10 of them, and they were, anywhere from 200 to 300 people were attending these events. So that would be what an activation would be. However, as time went on and when the pandemic happened, all of our activations were online. So we started hosting, baby showers with Huggies for military moms online. And, there were a lot of different, just creative processes that we put in place to reach this community in an effective manner. We were getting paid, the brands were benefiting from sales, and our community was benefiting from all the knowledge, resources, and information we were connecting them with. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. But I thought it was along those lines, but I also was asking for myself because I was like, I think I know what she's talking about, but let me.
So we would build marketing programs essentially for the brands, and we would activate them. But like a lot of marketing agencies, when they activate a marketing program, they don't have the customers to bring. So
and
like
you did through your
right. So like if you hire a marketing agency, they might create a program for you, but then either you or they have to go out and find the people to attend. We had those people, and that was what made us unique in the parenting space.
So do you think that was the single, like almost like clincher that really helped propel your business, the activations?
So the activations absolutely helped to propel our business. We had our own events as well that we created. They were sponsored and paid for as well. People would buy tickets to them, but it really was these partnerships that grew our business. When Nordstrom and when Target came to me and said, and then it was within the same year that they wanted to partner with us, that was when Bump Club was put on the map in a very big way, in a national way. I mean, we were doing events in multiple cities on our own at this time, but it was, we all of a sudden had a linchpin that was like Target, and we were doing events in 20 Targets around the country. And then there was Nordstrom, and we were doing events in 24 Nordstroms around the country. And that really was what put us on the map. Now, I was approached in the summer of 2018 to sell my company. I was approached by 3 different entities. The first was not a fit. The second was the company that bought Scary Mommy. They're called Some Spider. And they had approached me, and it ended up not being a fit either. They wanted to dismantle the Bump Club brand, and they wanted me to come work for them and build an events division for them. And I did not want to do that without the equity of my brand. And then the third was the company who bought me. It's Advantage Marketing Solutions, and they're out of California. They own multiple agencies. We were their first B2B, B2C acquisition. And I went with them largely because they wanted me, they wanted my brand, they wanted my team. And in my eyes, we were a package. And, I wanted to sell the company. I wanted to be done bootstrapping. Events are very expensive. I wanted to not bear the stress of paying 10 people. I really wanted some help and some support. And I felt it was the best option, and it was. And we closed on that deal in 2019, January of 2019. So we went through a whole year before the pandemic hit. Had I not sold my business when I did, we would have likely gone out of business during the lockdown because all of my competitors did.
I was actually reading about when I was looking through your history, and I saw you sold it in 2019. I was like, oh, she got it in right at a good time.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. Okay. So what advice do you think you have for women who are looking to like sell their business, who maybe want to grow it to a point that you did and sell it?
If you want to sell your business, I think the very first thing is that you have to know your numbers. You have to have them buttoned up. You have to understand your revenue streams, your costs associated with your business. And my suggestion is to get someone to help you with that. Even if you're good at numbers. I'm not good at numbers. And I talk about that a lot, but it's a really daunting process and it's a very arduous process. And it's really easy to make a mistake. And so to have someone there to be by your side and to walk you through the process and to help you create the decks that you need to create and to really get the financials together is very important. That would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is that if you are selling your business, whether someone approaches you or you approach someone, you really have to do your due diligence. You really have to look into not only them as a company, but look into them as a culture. And is this a place where you want to work? Because you likely will have to work there or somewhere. If someone acquires you, it's not likely you're going to just like wipe your hands clean of everything. You're going to probably have to work there for at least a year, if not more. Most companies, 2 is pretty much the standard. And you need to know who you're signing up to work with. You need to know who you're getting in bed with. You need to know, what are they going to do to my company? If they've acquired other companies, I would talk to those founders and find out about their process. Really do your due diligence. And then number 3, I would say, don't succumb to the pressure. It's Jill Smokler, who she founded Scary Mommy, actually, and she's become a friend of mine. I had her on my podcast. She said this to me, and I wish that she had said this to me, and I wish that I had known her when I was going through the sale. She said, if someone is looking to buy you, it is your timeline. They want you, and do not succumb to their pressure and make concessions because you want to close the sale. I don't think I made concessions necessarily, but I really just wanted to sell the business. And so I think had I taken a step back for a minute, maybe certain things would have been different. Maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know. It's hindsight's 2020. But those are the 3 things that I would say if you're looking to sell your business.
What made you get to the point that you decided you were ready to sell your business?
I had a life stage business, and I started the business when I was expecting my first child. And by the time 2018 rolled around, that first child was 8 and my second child was 5. And I was no longer pushing a stroller, really using a car seat. We were using boosters. And yeah, I knew all of the products and the safety regulations and, like the back of my hand. And I did, but I built this company on me, my experiences, and my authenticity. I mean, honest to God, like before authenticity was a word, I was showing up talking about my itchy belly to roomfuls of people, before the internet was even a thing. And I just didn't feel authentic anymore talking about products that I wasn't using. It felt so weird to me. And I knew I had a shelf life, right? Like I knew that I could not be like hawking strollers forever. But in my head, I was like, I will sell it or get investors and I will move into more of an advisor role for the brand. I can market and brand, anything till the cows come home. I mean, that's what I'm good at. That's what I like to do, but someone else can be the face of this company. Mm-hmm. So that was why I knew I wanted to sell it. And then when I went to leave, I left because of a lot of reasons, but one of them was because I was still the face of this company and I didn't want to be, and no one was like letting me out of it. Like it was like I had a million different processes set up. I had so many ideas. I was like, this is what you need to do. You need to get like 10 mom influencers to come in and hire them. You don't have to pay them like CEO salary, but have them be the group that propels Bump Club forward. No one wanted to let me out of this situation. And I didn't want to be the face of a baby brand anymore. I don't think that that's very unreasonable. And I don't think anyone believed me that I'd leave. And I did.
As someone who's currently pushing strollers, it does bring home like, yes, because I have a 6-year difference almost 6 year between my 2 kids. And you really do. You get out of that. You forget. You say you won't forget. But then when I had my second, I was like, oh, yeah, this and this and this. So I can imagine if you're like, you're done having kids and you're leaving a baby company, you're not really thinking anymore about, like right now I'm dealing with a horrible diaper rash.
My
And
issues as a mom became very different. And, I could tell the company how to market to the target community, and I could give them advice and write them plans. And I did when I left. I mean, that was, they were my first client. I was their consultant for 8 weeks before I left, but I could not be the face of it anymore.
Mm.
And it also became very evident to me that it was not my company anymore. During the process of sale, it was told to me that I was going to get to, it was just rocket fuel that they were propelling into my business, that the company would still be the same. I would still have the say, like a say in everything. And there were definitely certain things along the way that changed, and that we weren't allowed to talk about on social media anymore. And it wasn't mine anymore. And if my face was going to be on this, I couldn't compromise my values and integrity for the sake of corporate America. And that was a big part of it. If they took my face off it and wanted me to run it behind the scenes, that would be something different. But I could not be the face of this company in June of 2020 and not talk about Black Lives Matter. That was not an option for me, and they wouldn't let me. So, I think that that was not something that a year prior would have even been an issue, or 2 years prior would have even been an issue. It was very corporate. And that was what really indicated to me and signaled to me that, like, it is time. Like, this isn't yours anymore. It is time. And it's okay. Like, I was happy to move forward.
was it a hard decision when you realized that maybe it's time for me to leave?
Yes. I mean, it is a hard decision. You're never really ready to leave the company you founded until you're really ready to leave the company you founded, and that moment kind of happens. And there was a definitive moment for me during June of 2020 that I said, I think I need to start, like, thinking about my exit. Now, I told my then boss, I think twice in 2020, that I was thinking about an exit and I'd like to discuss an exit, and she ignored me. And in January of 2021, I said, no, like, I want to leave. But I had a lot of knowledge that they had not extracted from me, including the Instagram password, which was the last thing I gave them. It was so weird that no one took it from me. But, and then finally in May of 2021, I said, they, like, didn't believe me. They weren't getting back to me. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to be done. This is my date. And so we can come to a conclusion or an arrangement or a deal, or on that date, that's my last day. And there was a lot of back and forth for 2 months. And truthfully, by the time I ended up leaving, I was happy to leave because it was very taxing. It wasn't fun to go back and forth. And, I did so, and I didn't just walk away. It wasn't a monetary thing. I wasn't holding out for money. That wasn't what it was. I felt like I could not abandon my team, and I felt like I couldn't abandon the community who relied on seeing my face every day. And a part of my exit agreement was that I was able to go onto the Instagram and say that I was leaving. And it was a really important thing to me. And so that's what the holdup was, truthfully. Corporate America is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just sounds like it was very emotionally draining too.
It was. And so when I was done, I was done.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the team a little bit, because you've talked a lot about your team and the baby, the bump club. I keep calling it baby bump club.
That's okay.
The bump club. How do you think your management and leadership style changed over the years as you grew this team? And even now, what have you taken with you in your new marketing and consulting company?
My biggest thing with the team was always to ask for help. And when I hired my first employee at Bump Club, I was doing a couple of events a month. I was working, and I was schlepping shit around. I was literally, like, schlepping shit from event to event. And this woman who ended up being my first hire, reached out to me, and she said, I just finished grad school. I've never had a job in my life because I went to summer camp every single year. I'll do anything for you. And I hired her as my hourly employee, and she helped me with, like, very menial things at first, but it became clear very fast, very quickly, that she wanted to work for me. She told me that, even though she was looking for a full-time job. And I was like, you know what? I need a right-hand person. I need help in order to grow this business. And in order to make more money, I need to hire someone. And so I ended up going out and finding a big sponsorship. I think it was like Similac or Enfamil. I can't remember which one. And they paid me enough money that I was able to pay her a salary for her first year. And from there, I ended up hiring different people to help me in different markets. They were contractors. So I had a bunch of contractors. And then I also ended up hiring more full-time employees later on. We had an assistant, we had a marketing person. I had a fractional CMO. When I sold, I had 8 employees. I had 2 salespeople that ended up coming onto the team. But to answer your question, what I learned and what I took with me, and I think what those 2 women at Hearst could have really benefited from as well, was that women operate much better and to a fuller capacity for the business when there's flexibility involved. And I created a company where moms could work. Like we had full-time employees who were moms. And then we also had like part-time employees who were moms and contractors who were moms. And, even hourly employees who would run events. We called it like manicure money. Like they would get like, $50 an event or $25 an event, whatever it was. And there were times that, I'd be emailing, my team would be emailing me at like 1 a.m, but like they were not around in the afternoon, and that's fine. I showed up every day at Bump Club with the notion that everyone would get their work done, and they did. I never really had to say like, this is due, or this is due, or these are the work hours, or that wasn't how we ran this company. And it worked. It worked. And I felt very proud to build a company where moms didn't have to hide the fact that they were moms, where moms could go pick up their kids, where moms could take vacation and we all had their backs to cover it and they had mine. That was what I built. And also to build a company where we had at one point, 25 part-time hourly employees that were moms that really just wanted to own something of them for themselves and make a little money. And I felt very proud to be able to give that to them. So what I've taken with me to the next step is, one, to ask for help. And, I am technically a solopreneur right now, but I have a bookkeeper. I have a podcast agency. I have a virtual assistant. Like I have people who fit with what I need right now. And I have no problems asking for help or adding on to what it is that they're doing. And I have, as I've grown this business. So, I think the biggest takeaway is to ask for help and to know that in order to grow your business, you have to put into the business. And I actually had a client say that to me today. She said, I feel like I'm at the point where I need to be spending a little bit more money so I can make a lot more money. And I said, exactly. And that is really what I took away from Bump Club into this 2.0 of mine.
And that's a hard mentality to get around.
Yes.
I mean, I sometimes still struggle with it. I'm like, oh, is this really going to help me? But yes, of course it's going to help you. Of course. What do you think was one of the best investments you've made? And it can be from either business. And what do you think is one of the worst investments you've made?
One of the best investments that I made in both businesses was a bookkeeper. Because really and truly, like you cannot do it on your own. And there are so many incredible services out there that can help you. And when you have someone who's helping you with your numbers, your numbers, you can see your numbers, you can see your spending, you can see how much you can be paying yourself. It just is so much better to have that second set of eyes helping you with something that is so important for your business. With the first time around, when I hired a bookkeeper was really when my business went from, here to here and grew. So that would be the first thing in terms of best investment would be a bookkeeper and or help. Because help comes in different ways in different forms for different people. My worst investment, I hired in this 2.0, I took a public speaking class. And I also hired someone to help book me with public speaking. And those were the 2 worst investments that I made. And I think that I just don't think that I did enough due diligence on them and hiring them. And so I would say if you're going to hire someone and you're going to pay someone to help you, you need to really get many references. You need to ask around and you need to sit on it for a day or 2 before you pull the trigger.
It's hard sometimes because, like the sales tactics when they're like, this price is not going to be available tomorrow. You got to let us know by tomorrow. I just had that.
You know what? When someone says that to you, You need to say, oh, well, and walk away.
Mm.
And when you go back to them the next day, if they're not going to offer you that price, you can say, you know what, I'm only going to do it if you offer that price. And if they don't, then they're not for you.
Yes, good advice. I hope everyone's listening to that, because it's hard to be able to stand firm and
Well, and
say,
that's what
like,
happened with me with the speaking course. And it was a lot of money. And I just should have, I was stupid. Like really and truly, like I was like really stupid and I ended up actually getting a lot of the money back because the salesman promised me things that they never delivered on, and it was in writing. So I ended up getting a lot of the money back, but it was a really annoying process. The whole thing was annoying, and I should have listened to my gut on that. So when someone's trying to pull one over on you with their sales tactics, take a minute, take a beat, think about it, and go back to them the next day.
Mhm. How did you have to change your mindset as you went through this progress in your journey, starting with the magazine company, building your own, the Bump Club, and then going past that into your marketing and consulting business? How did you have to change your mindset through all of these iterations?
I would say like when I started at Hearst, my mindset was pretty much, it was that of a learning mindset. Like I was very young. I was one of the youngest employees ever hired in my position at Hearst. I was 23. Most of the women who were doing the job that I was doing were well over 35. And so it was really that mindset for me was to learn from those around me and to really soak up the experiences and gain as much knowledge as possible to become the best salesperson that I could become. And I did. But when you are on your own, so shifting to Bump Club, like when you're on your own, you have to be sure of yourself. I mean, there's no one really to gut check you, right? Like, so you kind of have to gut check yourself and you have to listen to your gut. You really do. Like, inside whether or not something is right or something is wrong. But I also think in terms of mindset, you can't be afraid to reach out to people and ask for advice and ask for help. You really have to lean into the people who are around you in order to protect your own mental health. And I think that there's so much when you're a founder of a bigger company, a 6-7 figure company, and you have employees and people are relying on you, you really need to lean into help and not be afraid to ask for help because there's so much smoke and mirrors that can go on around you. And sometimes it's embarrassing to be like, or you feel like it's embarrassing to be like, oh, I need help with this. It's not. Everyone goes through it. And it's so important that you leverage the help around you. And then I think now, having gone through what I've been through, it's definitely prepared me for this 2.0. I don't want some huge agency with a big team. I love the work I'm doing and I'm very happy, and my happiness is my priority. And so in terms of mindset, like that's what I think of, like myself and my family first. It's not like the money first. It's not the growth of the company first. It's, am I here for the right reasons for me? And is this going to fill me up? And I have found that since doing that, the money has come. Like it's like, that is like what has propelled me forward every single day. And I think more than ever, I'm confident in myself. I used to like ask for a lot of opinions, even at Bump Club. I would ask my team. I don't have that right now. So I have to be sure of the decisions that I'm making, and I am. Does that
That's
answer your
good to hear.
question?
Yeah, it did. It
Okay.
did perfectly. Thank you. What advice do you have for women as they grow their business or want to hit the $1 million tipping point?
My biggest advice would be I have so much. I'm trying to think what I would want to say my biggest advice is. My biggest advice for women as they grow their business would be to ask for help. And I've said that a few times, but like, I think that entrepreneurs, but specifically female entrepreneurs, are wired to think and want to do it all, think that they can do it all and want to do it all. You can't. You just can't. And so you have to know when to ask for help, and you have to not be afraid to ask for help. And you cannot grow without having support outside. And that support might not be a 6-figure employee on your team. That support might be like a cleaning lady in your house, or like, or childcare. But you cannot do it all on your own. And so if you want to grow a business, you have to understand and know when to put the supports in place.
Well, thank you so much. That's good. That's good advice. Where can we find you? If you have anything you want to share with our audience, this is the moment, and I will make sure to put it in our show notes.
Yeah. You can find me at Lindsay Pinchuk on Instagram and at Dear Found Her on Instagram. That's my twice weekly podcast where we interview some of the biggest female founders around the world. We've had everyone from Dr. Becky at Good Inside to Bobby Brown to Jen Sherman from Peloton to Catherine Reitman from Working Moms. Really great guests who are sharing their experiences as founders on the show. So you can find me at Dear Found Her, at Lindsay Pinchuk, and then online at lindsaypinchuk.com and dearfoundher.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you. What is one philosophy, mantra, or quote that you try to run your business by?
Be yourself.
Talking about authenticity before I thought authenticity was a thing. I liked when you said that.
Honestly, like you cannot run a business if you are trying to be something you're not. You cannot run a business if you're trying to be someone that someone else wants you to be. That shows, and people can see through the bullshit. You have to show up as yourself every single day. And more so, you can't compromise your integrity or your values for short-term gain. And that's a really big one too. And that rides along with being yourself. Like if you would not use a product, don't accept advertisements for them on your website, on your podcast. That goes against everything about being yourself. You know, you really want to stay true to who you are, and you want to let that shine through across all of your platforms. When you put something out into the world and you put yourself out into the world, the right people will be attracted to you and the right people will want to do business with you.
Thank you so much for joining me on this show, Lindsay, and all the wonderful advice you've given, because seriously, it's been really, really helpful. And if you're listening to this show and you're an audience member and you found it informative and valuable, please do us a little favor and help grow the show. Share it with another person who would also appreciate Lindsay's advice. Until next time, you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Virtually Kiri. Thank you again, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me.